pretty stock list. I mean, 1,000,000 foros, of course, 28 creatures, and then 2 Rifts, a Rapid Hybridization, a Jace, and 3 Bidens. Some of you see like a 2-2 Biden Jace split, so you see Greg leaning towards 3 Bidens and 1 Jace. Maybe give him a little bit of a leg up against Mono Black, perhaps.
Right. In fact, you can even see on the deck list where he has scratched out that 2-2 split and opted for the 3-1, changing at the last minute.
Now, Vidi's deck is kind of interesting, the white-black aggro deck. Again, this is the deck that you mentioned that Luis Scott Vargas is the person you've seen playing it.
Yeah, I bumped into him on Moto myself a few times now.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the kind of like Lundqvist's Boros deck. I mean, it's base white, splash red, or splash black, excuse me. But, you know, it's got the 12-1 drops, and, you know, this version has Zathra Necromancer. He's got access to Orso Charm, but really this is a Brave the Elements deck.
Yeah. He has a little bit of additional durability. He can't have the Boros Charm for indestructibility against Supreme Verdict, so that's where Zathra Necromancer comes in. But he's also cut down on some of the elements. We know Ben is running like 4 Ajanis, I believe, in this event, whereas this particular list has a singleton Ajani in the main deck and a singleton Spear of Heliod. So not a lot of oomph from the non-creature permanents in this department. However, you do gain access to an awesome removal spell in Orzhov Charm by going black, which, when added with the main deck Banisher Priest, means he's got a pretty healthy game against these creature-based strategies that are really popular in Standard.
All right, so we see both players taking a look at their opening hands here. Again, both these players have had quite a bit of Open Series success. Vidianto has at least one in Legacy, and when we were in Vegas, I believe it was last year, Vesper Stoneblade. It all starts to blend together when you cover so many events.
He's got a lot of top 8s, and he's also a Grand Prix champion.
Yeah,
so.
Grand Prix Denver earlier this year. It just seems like yesterday that I was there. Starting with Cloudfin Raptor, a Giant Militant is where Wijaya is going to start.
Yeah, 1-drops are pretty important in this matchup. Cloudfin Raptor is, in fact, one of the best weapons the Mono Blue Devotion deck has against the white-based aggro deck because it's an aggressive creature that gets in the air where the white-black creature deck can't block.
Yeah. Judges maybe are going to come into play. Will cost a mana, so Greg does finally tap one.
Familiar grows the Cloudfin Raptor is itself a minor air threat, and also inconveniences the use of things like Brave the Elements and Orzhov Charm. Lets Greg play a slightly more predictable game.
And the more annoying thing here, I think, for Wijaya is that I think that Judge Familiar is just at the ready to trade with that Giant Militant.
Oh, yeah.
I would not be surprised to see it jump in front of that given the opportunity.
Yeah, Greg would need to be like really heavily leaning on an early Thassa to not want to make that trade. Even if Vidi has something like a Brave the Elements here, that's a fine trade.
Yeah, you're thrilled with that. And that attack too, as you see a Soldier and a Giant Militant, is always really dangerous to me because that they play 1 Rapid Hybridization, and so you could just get blown out where they rapid their own guy and then just eat your guy alive. It doesn't happen a ton, but it is always I'm always a little scared to make that attack.
It can be a little scary, but it's even not that crazy bad a trade because Rapid Hybridization can have a huge impact late in the game when it does something you're not expecting. Kills a guy on like a turn where you're trying to alpha for lethal, you just get alpha right back for lethal. So even if you wind up losing a creature to get rid of the one of Rapid Hybridization, that kind of lets you breathe easier over the remaining course of the game.
So Hatch is going to play a Thassa. I think he's deciding if he wants to attack with Cloudfin Raptor, if this is going to be on defense. Does he actually want to try to trade with the Soldier of the Pantheon or the Giant Militant, or just pass the turn back? Because he does have a Master Waves in his hand, and he does have a land as well, so he just may want to keep his devotion count high. If that's the case, you don't want to miss it on that point of damage. Yeah,
this will depend heavily on the context of his hand and what he knows about the deck Vidi is playing. For example, I know that Ben Lundqvist was debating between Frontline Medic in the main deck or Banisher Priest in the main deck. He doesn't necessarily know that Vidianto's list has 4 Banisher Priests in the main deck, making something like Master of Waves way less consistent at defense than usual. And considering Vidi hasn't even shown him a black mana yet, he doesn't know that Orzhov Charm could also be on the horizon. That's a lot of things that kill Master of Waves. Relying on Master as a defensive measure is just not going to work out.
Yeah, it's not like you're playing against Boros where you just drop Master of Waves, then your only out realistically is, building up a large army and Brave the Elements past it. But if Greg's going to hold back the Cloudfin Raptor, that means that yes, I am prepared to trade with you.
Vidianto is no doubt just wishing he'd had that Soldier on turn 1 in the first place.
Yeah, of course.
To try and start getting in damage, make the Judges Familiar not an issue.
So there's a Mutavault, now here's a Spirit Heliod, so no trade is going to happen now. And so Greg's actually going to end up taking 6 on the face, going down to 14.
Yeah, Greg no doubt kicking himself a little here.
Yeah, you do miss a point of damage for that, so. Hatch will untap, Thassa trigger. Don't want to miss that one. He's going to take a look at his hand, consult, bottoms up, that goes. Seemed like that was a pretty easy decision.
Yeah,
take a draw step. Frostburn Weird, not a bad draw here at all.
No, it does not hold off that Soldier of the Pantheon, but since it can block the Dryad Militant, that's basically all the same. And it supercharges up the Master of Waves we've already been discussing, and adds 2 blue mana symbols for Thassa, which he needs to turn on pronto.
Yeah, also lets that Cloudfin Raptor evolve too, so that can actually, the Cloudfin Raptor would actually be able to trade with the Soldier of the Pantheon.
It really does it all.
Yeah, I think Frostburn is actually a great draw here. A little surprised to see him not deploy that, but here's Master of Waves, which also does a few things, one of which will evolve that Cloudfin Raptor.
Yeah, the Master of Waves does force Vidi to have something here. Otherwise, the elemental tokens can just trade off with Vidi's army when they attack. So Greg is hoping either he gets a turn of reprieve and can start attacking, or can actually do some trades.
Yeah, we should have 3 elemental tokens out there, not 2. So we will get that corrected. And there's our 3rd one. All right, perfect.
Vidianto does have the Banisher Priest. Reveals his Black Splash with Temple of Silence there.
Going to play the Temple before attacking. Wants to make sure he has good information before he makes an attack here. Banisher Priest, in theory, eats that Master of Waves alive, and then your Cloudfin Raptor can trade with either one of these things. And I think that you actually do have to trade Cloudfin Raptor with something here.
Yeah, he does have his Aether Necromancer in his hand, so he might be, kind of just leery of making the trade now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's going to go for it, and Greg's going to want to block the Soldier, but I'm pretty sure that's just what he would be doing anyway. It's the better of the 2 creatures.
Yeah.
By a country mile. If we didn't attack with the Raptor, I think that we just have to be making this block. It's going to be very difficult to justify not doing it.
Yeah, I just don't think, in a deck where you're playing against Brave the Elements, I don't think you can afford to just take 6 points of damage, leave yourself dead to just a Brave the Elements off the top of the deck. You're in bad shape either way, but I think you have to block something at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And blocking the Soldier means that the Frostburn Weird he's about to play is actually like a reasonable creature.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he could just still get beat to death by the Soldier.
So he's trying to figure out exactly where he's going to block. He is going to block here.
It's a tough play, but you got to make it.
Yeah. I mean, he can't not block at this point. So Hash is going to untap. He'll take a draw step. Oh, excuse me, he'll scry first.
He has drawn his Bident, which is not one of the better cards in the matchup.
Yeah, 3 of those in his deck. And again, he's by playing 3 of those, I mean, you're basically saying he's gearing my deck. I'm gearing my deck more towards beating Mono Black Devotion and control decks as opposed to aggressor strategies. And that's where this hurts because, well, Jace isn't great in this particular situation. Jace is great against this deck.
Yeah, Jace is actually probably one of, if not the best cards in the matchup. I think you really want like a Cloudfin Raptor curve that ends with Jace up top, and then you just race your opponent to death.
Yeah.
That's one of the best ways to beat a Brave the Elements.
Frostburn Weird and Mutavault show up here for Hatch as he passes the turn back again. We know the last card, is that Bident of Thassa. So Wijaya is going to draw his card.
One of the things I like the most about Spear of Heliod out of these white-based aggressive decks is its power level alongside Mutavault, specifically against other Mutavaults. It gets really, really awkward when your Mutavault's a 3/3 and theirs is a 2/2. Makes blocking very difficult, especially considering the other options available.
Yeah, I mentioned this with Patrick. It's just really frustrating where, typical white aggressive decks, they always have access to a Crusade effect, be it a creature like a Wizensen, be it Honor of the Pure or Glorious Anthem, what have you. We even saw Johnny Goldmane, and now, there is one, but you can only play one of them, realistically. Maybe 2, but you certainly can't play more than that. But the first Crusade effect is so good.
Yeah, Spear of Heliod is certainly one of the more powerful Crusades that we've seen in a long time. I think Ajani Collar of the Pride is also pretty close to a Crusade. Obviously, his impact is a little bit different. I really like his staying power as a Crusade effect that can, continue to generate value alongside Mutavaults, which is really nice. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic to see people choosing between Spear and Ajani. Obviously, Vidianto was unable to make that specific choice himself, and he's running the 1-in-1 split, but I'm a big fan of Ajani right now.
So it looks like he's looking to fire up a Mutavault here, but he's certainly taking his time on his turn. Again, his hand right now has his Aether Necromancer, as you did mention, and also has a Brave the Elements in it as well.
Yeah, I think he's kind of wondering whether he should play the Aether Necromancer in order to allow the Mutavault to turn into a 2/2 if it should die in combat, or if he should hold up the Brave in order to protect his creature. It looks like he decides to hold up the Brave.
I wonder how Hash is going to block here. Because what he can do is he can put Mutavault in front of... What does this attack accomplish very much? Put Mutavault in front of Dryad, put Frostburn Weird in front of Mutavault?
Yeah, either way, Greg can actually get a trade, no matter what Vidianto does. So I'm not really sure why Vidi chose this specific attack.
What's his follow-up going to be? Because he has to have one. Godless Shrine untapped. Now Zathrid, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Not the best turn there from Wijaya.
No, but he's still ahead on the board, and Greg's, just struggling to make headway. Of course, if he does turn on this Thassa, that'll actually be a pretty sizable game changer. Getting the 5/5 live and on the field can actually defend himself a little bit.
Yeah, and we know he has the ability to turn it on because of Biden, so
Yeah.
he'll have 5 Devotion next turn. So he's going to put the top card on the bottom from the Scrying. And now, Master of Waves.
A tempting offer from the top of Greg's deck.
That may change some things.
Master of Waves versus Zathrid Necromancer. Now that's a fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is fair
Yeah.
and balanced.
Now, would you deploy that as opposed to Biden right now? Because if you deploy Biden, you've got Thassa live, you've got Frostborn on defense, and then your Master is better next turn.
The Master is better, but I think that he's, on 11 life, a little wary of getting blown out. That Mutavault, he can't really profitably block anything, especially if he casts Bident. Then Vidianto is just going to attack with everything immediately, be guaranteed to get in 6 damage, dropping Greg to 5, and he'll just be all in on this Master living to do anything, assuming, Vidianto doesn't have anything else, because he can Brave his Banisher Priest when Greg predictably blocks with the Thassa.
Sure.
So...
Master of Waves is the option that Hatch decided to go with here. And now he's got a huge board, and this game has changed dramatically. And I think right now, again, we know he has Brave the Elements Land. I think he drew a land for the turn. Now, among those beautiful lands that he has on his side of the table, don't forget there is a Mutavault down there, which is a human for Zathrid Necromancer, so that is important.
Yeah, Greg's ability to play the Bident next turn and actually, draw some cards if Vidi happens to attack is also pretty handy. He has a sizable number of creatures right now.
Yeah, I'd actually be interested to see how he does go about attacking on his turn. If he just slams Biden and then decides how he wants to attack, maybe it's an attack with, just Thassa. Is Wijaya willing to take that? He's got some real decisions to make.
Yeah, I don't think Vidianto can attack, and Vidianto comes to the same conclusion.
Yeah. So Scry's going to happen here immediately on the bottom.
Yep, you're bottoming pretty much everything that's not a windmill top at this point. That's what you want.
So now here comes Biden. And it's interesting because when we talk about Biden, we look at Biden as, this devotion enabler and the fact that it can draw cards. But the activated ability on this card in this particular game state is going to get very real. Because it's going to force Wijaya into some bad attacks as soon as possibly next turn. And then, Thassa can eat something alive. It'll force the hand on the Brave the Elements to save the Banisher Priest because you don't want other Master Waves coming into play. So things could get really bad now.
Yeah, we see Greg just sending in the Thassa, kind of as predicted. When Vidianto can't attack, that means he can block. And the only creature that will survive the Spear's activated ability is Thassa herself. So it makes total sense, and Vidianto predictably declines to chump with anything, as it would just be bad value.
Hatch going to play an island for the turn, so now he's got access to at least one activation there on the Frostburn Weird.
Yeah, note that he held that island until after he attacked. Off chance he draws a Mutavault. Might want to have that active to attack next turn. No reason to go ahead and drop your land before you get that extra card. Looks like Vidianto drew an Imposing Sovereign. Probably really wishes he'd had that a couple turns ago.
Yeah. It's very, Imposing Sovereign is such a weird, weird's the wrong word, interesting card to me, because because the power level of that card varies so much from just wow, this is insane, you can't possibly win, to I drew it on turn 7, this doesn't do anything.
Yeah, turn 2, the Blade, turn 4, getting pretty mediocre.
Yeah.
Turn 6, stone blank.
Yeah. As it has shown up much late this game. To be fair, the card that it is normally subbed out for, especially by Ben Lundquist, is Azorius Arrestor, and I don't think that would be much better in this situation either, so they would just be 2-1s, but, that is a card that which I would have liked to have a couple turns ago. And now you see Hatch is going to do some blocking here. It looks like Vidi is making his attack to kind of whittle down the forces.
Yeah, he knows that he can't just sit against this army and a Bident. Greg will very easily begin to pull ahead. So he decides to just try and trade some guys off, make some tokens. Hopefully he can force trades again next turn with the exact same attack. So he's going to go ahead and just lose these 2 guys to trade with an elemental token each, get a zombie, and try to fight back against the Master of Waves that way.
All right, so a bunch of stuff is going to die. He's going to get some zombies momentarily, 2 of them. Don't forget, those zombies, when they die, they come into play tapped.
They do, so that means Vidianto is open for business. But he does have Imposing Sovereign, which is a 3-2 alongside the 3-3 Banisher Priest. Maybe he can, ward off, a really aggressive attack. Greg can really only send, like, the Frostburn Weird and the Thassa unless he wants to start making some stuff unblockable, which he has the mana to do at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of interested here where I think it's a situation where I think Hatch can play this turn really, really defensively and just say, hey, your guys have to attack into me now with Biden.
Yeah.
And just really kind of ruin his combat and force the hand on Brave the Elements, which is the card that Wijaya needs to actually get himself out of this situation.
I think he just drew, if he just drew a Cyclonic Rift, then he's really got like the full wrap on this situation too. Because there's not really anything that he could draw that will change how awesome Greg's combat step becomes.
All right, so we go unblockable with Thassa. Draw a card. Did we need to make that unblockable?
I think I may have misread that Rift. Yep, looks like he has Weird Judge's Familiar and drew a Tidebinder Mage.
Okay.
For the card. So he makes it unblockable. I agree with you. I don't know how great that was. If we get Vidianto to just throw away his Imposing Sovereign, that's probably favorable for us, especially if our hand's filled with creatures.
Yeah, I'm okay with if he does that. However, I mean, what Hatch looks like he's setting up down the line here is that the unblockable attack makes it so that Wijaya goes down to 7, and then next turn, just unblockable, kill you. It's very unlikely that you can actually have something to get yourself out of the situation.
Yeah, right now, Vidianto's basically looking for another Banisher Priest to take the Thassa out of the equation.
The thing that's so interesting about this mono blue deck is, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle, but the puzzle that you're trying to build towards is turning on Thassa and making Master Waves a good card. And it basically makes it so it puts a lot of pressure on you to draw those cards. But when you do draw those cards and they're active, they are
paid.
Yeah, you get paid big time. And this is what you see a lot with this deck is just, oh, my Thassa's active. Good luck. You're probably not winning. Or, I drew a Master of Waves.
Wildly different deck with an active Thassa.
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy. And the rest of the cards are just like, I feel like a lot of the time I look at this deck, I really undersell a card like Frostburn Weird. It's a good card.
Hey, man. Guy does work.
Yeah, it's a good card.
Somebody's got to put on the yellow hard hat and go get in there, you know? The building's not going to put itself together.
Yeah, he is a role player. That is for sure. And now Vidi's going to turn everybody sideways here, so Greg needs to make the appropriate blocks here.
When I'm dead on board, I also like attacking with everything because it's not like not attacking is going to change much. And at least here, maybe he can convince Greg that something's up, that there's a mistake to be made.
I mean, it is a lethal attack, after all. So, if he, for some reason, says no blocks, I don't know why he would do that. That would not be good. But, he would die.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to convert into a reasonable amount of value on this attack with a Brave the Elements to protect our creatures as Greg goes with all the blocks. And our Brave the Elements isn't doing anything else at this point. Greg's deciding, it looks like, to block as defensively as possible. He's, going after the Banisher Priest, which is obviously very tempting because it replaces itself if you can kill it. But there's something to be said for trying to kill a zombie since it can't be protected by Brave the Elements.
Agreed.
It probably just smells too good to be true, right? So I can trade my master and get another master. Yeah, sign me up. Yeah. And you can tell that's what's definitely going through his head right now. Decides to go for it.
I would love to do that.
Figures, what does it matter? I'm going to kill him anyway next turn. Vidianto Braves. I'm going to guess he named red. No, probably blue.
Probably blue. Probably blue, okay.
Probably blue, yeah.
Could be anything.
It could be. There are 5 options. Misclick, misclick. And then Soldier of the Pantheon. So now Vidianto basically has to hope that Greg casts a Judge's Familiar before he begins making creatures unblockable.
I don't think that will happen.
I don't think it'll happen either.
Is that a Rapid, I think you drew?
Rapid Hybridization. That's going to be a wrap for the game, as it will be very difficult for Greg to feel even a little bit unsafe with a blue mana up and a Rapid Hybridization in his hand.
And what he can do here is just go unblockable on Thassa, unblockable on Tidebinder Mage into the red zone.
Yeah.
I guess he can just do this.
He can also just attack and use Frostburn Weird's pumps to get in lethal. It doesn't have to actually make anything unblockable, which is technically more mana efficient. Oh, he's going to go for unblockable.
Yeah, so what he does is he makes Thassa unblockable, and then he makes nothing else unblockable.
Sure, so
that'll be lethal.
That's even more mana efficient than pumping the Weird.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. And that's going to do it. So Greg Hatch does win game number 1 here over Vidianto Wijaya. Mono Blue Devotion up a game against white-black aggro as we move on to the sideboard territory.
We do.
And I'll let you start because you've got the white-black deck in front of you.
I do. So Vidianto's sideboard offers a few options. The 2 Doomblades are the most attractive by a country mile in this matchup as they kill basically everything and are very efficient. You really want to keep that Thassa turned off, as we saw. It wound up not panning out for Vidi, but he does have the addition of Doomblade to help him out. Another option, Profit Loss, sweeps the board, offers him a little bit of a combat trick if he wants to go all in on a Brave turn. Can definitely kill someone with that +1/+1 to all creatures. Outside of that, his remaining options are another Zathra Necromancer, 2 Sin Collectors, 2 Thoughtseize, 3 Fiendslayer Paladin, an additional Spear of Heliod, and 3 Dark Betrayals. I'm not really excited by any of those other options. Maybe the Zathra Necromancer. I don't think so, though, because this matchup's not, like, super attrition-y. I think that this game was a little abnormal, you know? We saw Vidi using Necromancer to let him ram his guys into a Master of Waves. Ideally, he avoids that fight entirely. He just kills the Master of Waves, doesn't trade with anything. And it's abnormal from Greg's side as well. You know, we saw Bident come down to turn on his Thassa and draw him a couple cards to get the board glutted up. That's not how he wants this to go either.
Yeah, that's not how the games go for him either.
You got to play with the cards you're dealt, but I think that both of those cards that were sort of turning points in this game are likely to be sideboarded out, if anything.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So mostly I see him bringing in the Profit Loss and the 2 Doomblades, and Zathra Necromancer is certainly potentially on the chopping block. I could see a Spear coming out or an Ajani. I would get rid of the Ajani before the Spear, although there are some sweet turns you can have with Ajani, you know, jumping something like a Precinct Captain or really any creature that's gotten pretty big for a turn.
Take a look at Hatch's sideboard here. You know, again, he has his main deck a little bit more geared towards beating control decks as opposed to aggressive ones. He's got a Dissolve. He's got 4 copies of Gainsay, 2 Jace Architect of Thought to go with his first one in his main deck, 2 Jace Memory Adept, 2 Rapid Hybridization, 3 Domestications, and Dispel. So the predictable cards to bring in here are the 2 Jace Architect of Thoughts, the 2 additional copies of Rapid Hybridization, and then 3 Domestications. That gives him 7 cards to bring in. 3 Buy-ins will give him 3 to bring out. So then you just have to find the other 4 slots that you want to change. And I mean, it's easy to say that Tidebinder Mage comes out here, but again, it does have some application in this matchup as far as, again, contributing to Devotion and just trading early, especially when you're on the draw.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to what is cutting out. I do like cutting out some of the Bidents. I feel like you have to cut out one of the cheaper creatures. I'm not sure if cutting out Tidebinder Mage is so much better or worse than cutting out Judge's Familiar.
Maybe you just chop Rift. 2 of those. I mean, it's kind of slow, and when you get to critical mass, I mean, that means that the game has gone long, which is probably where you want it to be when you're on the draw anyway.
That makes sense to me as well. You can have some blowout options, especially as a way to, you know, remove a Banisher Priest at a crucial moment.
Yeah.
But you are bringing in the Rapid Hybridizations.
You also bring up, one thing too is you bring up your mana curve a lot too. So how many expensive effects do you need? And when you're boarding in 2 Jaces and 3 Domestications, you're boarding in 5 more 4-drops to go along with your Jace already, and you have 4 Masters in your deck, so your mana curve overall is just higher now. So you just want to be able to trade. I feel like you want to trade early as often as you can, so that you can get to the later game, because the later the game goes, the more powerful your cards are.
Do you think that it's crazy to trim some Thassa based on that theory? You know, if it's a difficult card to turn on against the white-black version, which has access to all those Banisher Priests and Orzhov Charms to make things even more complicated. And if you do turn Thassa on, then that's a game you're pretty ahead in, but that's the uphill battle, right? It's not finding a Thassa, it's actually getting to 5 Devotion and being ahead.
I feel like I should text Sam Black right now. I don't know the answer.
I feel like we posted an article recently. That has to have the answer somewhere.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
Sam has written an article or 12 about Mono Blue along with videos, so, I mean, that would definitely be one place to reference, but...
I don't mind trimming a couple Thassa. I feel like it's a low-impact line.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. That's just tough to grasp. Where you're like you're trimming probably like the best card in your deck and the reason that your deck exists. Now, I mean, there are no was it sacred goats or sacred cows? What do people say?
Yeah.
Sacred whatever.
There are no sacred cows.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I mean, you can certainly sideboard it out. It's just something that's difficult to grasp.
I'm also kind of curious, you know, Greg didn't see Orzhov Charm, so maybe he doesn't necessarily know that Vidianto has access to that option. He can probably expect something like Doomblade coming in from the sideboard, though, and that kind of makes me interested in Dispel. He's got a Singleton there, and if you Dispel a Brave the Elements, that's huge.
That's a big game.
And being able to Dispel an Orzhov Charm or a Doomblade is certainly going to be relevant a lot of the time. The problem is the creature you most want to protect is Master of Waves. Waiting until you have 5 mana to cast one is not going to really be ideal.
Yeah.
But the option of eventually being able to Dispel one of those important instants could definitely be worth bringing in.
Don't forget about Profit Loss either.
Oh, sure. I
Love
don't think Greg's sideboarding thinking, all right, how do I avoid getting profit loss?
Sure.
But I mean, after he gets profit loss, he might be.
Yeah.
That has a habit of changing a man.
That's a good one-up from the sideboard. I like a one-up Dispel. We haven't seen much Dispel action recently. I mean, we saw it obviously last standard season with all the Revelation
card.
decks. It's so good.
Don't see it as much in the older formats now that we've got Swan Song around.
Hey, Twin and Modern. They're still. I'm pretty sure they're still jamming Dispel instead of Swan Song. Am I right or wrong about that?
I think they play Swan Song now,
think so?
personally,
Okay.
but I'm not 100%. I think they play a mix,
Okay.
actually, but I know that Swan Song has definitely made it into those decks for sure.
I guess Swan Song is.
You don't really have to be too worried about 2/2 birds. When you're
Yeah, that's
dealing
what I'm thinking right now.
Infinity fairy
Yeah,
damage.
I'm just thinking. Yeah, is there any reason for them not to play Swan Song? Like, obviously there is because it gives you 2/2, and there are situations where you're racing them and things like that. But
I mean, a lot of those decks are boarding Pyroclasm in anyway, so they've actually got ways to sweep it up.
That's true. I like that card.
Swan Song?
Yeah,
Yeah, fantastic card.
I like that card.
I like
a lot.
Pyroclasm more, but
Well, I mean, I play Tron, so do I. Trust me. Pyroclasm is one of the best cards in my deck, which I don't know if that means that my deck is good or bad, but that just means I like Pyroclasm a lot. That's all.
it's certainly one of the best cards in the deck I've been playing recently, the Primeval Titan deck I posted up for SCG just this week.
Yeah.
That deck's a delight.
It is.
Beats Karns all day, too. Oh, man, does it.
I mean, I play mine on turn 3 every game, so
That's when I play my Hasted Primeval Titans.
we'll see about that.
You know, I've attacked a Karn to death with a Slayer Stronghold of Azusa more times than I can count. It's so glorious every time.
I can't imagine this has ever happened.
Oh, it's happened. I screenshotted this to you once. I know that I did.
As we are underway here.
Vidianto with his perfect 2-drop Precinct Captain. Best one ever. Greg with his perfect 2-drop Frostburn Weird. Better one. Already roadblocked. Vidianto
Yeah, get that out of here.
gets it out of there with a Banisher Priest, burns it early, but gets in for 2, creates a token. A lot of board.
Banisher Priest is it's really good right now. I mean, it's just phenomenal in this matchup.
Yeah, and this, we came from a format where Fiend Hunter was an all-star, and this one is just continued the legacy, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Just a great card. Now here's another Frostborn Weird. So roadblock here again. But again, this is part of the reason I like VD's deck a lot is because, with Boros, Frostborn Weird is just like a true roadblock unless you don't have Banisher Priest. But he's got access to black removal spells. He's got Orzhov Charm. He has all these ways to actually be able to push through this. He's got a Doomblade in his hand right now. And I think that this is worth Doomblading and just keep attacking after he resolves his Scry.
yeah, he's definitely going to Doomblade it. However, I think that leaves him with just lands in hand. He did top his card from Temple, so that's a good thing.
Does Greg have a Rapid here?
Oh, man, if he does have a Rapid.
That is good. That is good.
That's a big game.
Yeah.
Greg gets a 3/3, holds off Vidi's attack.
That was really big.
And now Vidi's just got 3 lands in his hand, 3 more lands than he needs to cast any spell in his deck. But he does have a good one on top. He sent it there with Temple of Silence. It's possible he probably should have waited on the Temple maybe until after Doomblading to see what was up. Maybe that changes. We'll have to see what that card is before we know if that's possible. If it's something like an Ajani or a Spear, it probably would never have mattered. It's a Precinct Captain.
That certainly matters.
Yeah, I think we would have bottomed a Precinct Captain if we had known we were going to have a 3/3 standing in our way at the end of that Doomblade turn.
So now this Temple immediately puts something on the bottom. Precinct Captain's going to come into play. He's got to pass the turn back to Hatch because he can't get through. And now Nightveil Spectre can actually do some things. Obviously, with Nightveil Spectre being in play, that's actually kind of interesting, right?
Because, that's a will they, won't they on Temple.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because if he just leaves a brick on top, it's like, I dare you to attack. And if he does, then you might be able to get in some points of damage there. So either way, it looks like Nightveil Spectre was going to come into the red zone as Hatch does attack here. I think he's looking for a land. Turns over a Profit Loss.
The one of Profit Loss. That's as cards to turn over with a Nightveil Spectre. That's not so bad for Vidi because Greg, now has to play with the knowledge of that card's existence, which is a pretty messed up card to have to play around.
You think he plays around further ones?
I think that he at least will have to assume it could happen in a later game if they play another one. And that in and of itself is an edge to Vidi because he only has one. It's not that likely for him to have found it. But in this game, it can only be a positive. Like, Greg's very unlikely to just assume Vidi only has one unless he knows Vidi's exact deck list.
Yeah. I think Vidi just drew another Precinct Captain, I believe. You see him sliding his creatures over. Yeah, there's another one.
All right, well, if he does find a Brave the Elements, he can do some sizable damage with it, although that green Frog Lizard is going to be a little bit of a troublemaker.
See, Hatch drew a Cyclonic Rift for the turn. He has a Domestication in his hand. Right now, the one thing that Greg needs that might just put the end on this game is a 4th land. And so I think he's going to attack with Nightveil Spectre here to try to find one. Justice Familiar also feeling a touch frisky. Not a really good blocker at this juncture. So
No, he does keep the Cloudfin Raptor back, knowing that if he finds a way to evolve it, or already has one, he can get a 2/3 blocker, and that's just another guy that can eat one of Vidianto's guys if they attack.
And it is a 2/3 now, as Tidebinder Mage is going to come into play.
Vidianto draws a Boros Elite. He'll play it in ship turn. He just really has to keep waiting until he can do something.
I've been in this situation before when you're playing the Boros deck. It's kind of the exact same situation right now that Vidi's in, of just like, all right, like I really can't do anything, and I just need to draw Brave the Elements, but I also need to build like a critical mass of guys and maybe draw running Brave the Elements to be able to win the game, especially when he doesn't have Profit Loss to draw to anymore either, which can actually play a makeshift Brave the Elements.
In this situation, Profit Loss would probably have been significantly better than a Brave the Elements. In fact, it would have allowed him to attack, and it would have allowed him to salvage all of his creatures in combat.
And the other thing, too, that you could probably bet on is that Hatch wouldn't have played around Profit Loss.
Right.
So it would have arguably been better than Brave the Elements, as you mentioned.
So really it all comes down to that Temple of Silence scry. That's really the moral of the story.
Yeah.
We should have played chicken with him.
That would have been awesome. I dare you to attack. What do we find? Soldier of the Pantheon. I mean, if you're Vidi, even though like things are looking really bad for you, and now Hatch is tapping that, I think, for Master of Waves, so things are looking worse for you. Okay, he's going to Domesticate instead. He's going to take Banisher Priest. Things are looking really bad for you, but, you know, he's turning over non-Brave the Elements cards.
Taking a Banisher Priest is a savvy line here because it gives Greg another line of protection against Brave the Elements. It's a non-blue blocker. And also, if Vidi ever attacks into it, then Greg will just get back his Frostburn Weird. He'll be able to trade that Banisher Priest, you know, as easily as anything else.
Doomblade off the top here for Vidi, which is a pretty mediocre draw right now. I mean, yes, it's going to take care of the Master of Waves problem that may come, but the problem isn't Master of Waves right now. The problem is Nightveil Spectre. Generating all that value.
Nightveil Spectre, heck of a card. No one saw this coming when Return to Ravnica first hit those shelves. Nightveil Spectre, all-star.
Card's great.
I feel like after Pro Tour Dragon's Maze, we should have seen it coming, right? That was sort of a coming out party for that card in block format, where it was all the rage and the Esper sideboards.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the only spot that people actually saw it. That's part of the reason I played it in Seattle on my Esper sideboard. Matt Costa told me, he's like, well, it was great when I was playing Esper at the Pro Tour, or when I was testing Esper at the sideboard. So it's just like, wow, I'm just really surprised that this card hasn't been picked up on more, and now it's just blown up like wildfire.
Looks like Doomblade took down that Frog Lizard, and does that mean Vidianto is considering an attack?
So you get Precinct Captain runs into a
Cloudfin Raptor, but the other two are either going to connect or eat creatures. I think that Greg's fine with that. He'll probably throw away the Banisher Priest on one of the Precinct Captains to reclaim his Frostburn Weird and prevent Vidianto from getting a token. And then the Tidebinder Mage will go on the Soldier, and then he'll just take 5. That's my guess. Greg might be playing around some other options. As we mentioned, he does have to concern himself with the potential profit loss, but considering how Vidianto led with the Doomblade, I think he can probably safely assume that that's not in the stars.
This looks like these are going to be your blocks here, which means, as you mentioned, 3 from the Boros League because of Battalion, and then 2 from the Precinct Captain, assuming this is how Greg wants to block, which I think this is the best block.
Yeah, it looks like a good block. You take a little bit more damage, but you most economically deal with Vidianto's board, and you make future Boros Elite attacks even more costly because Vidianto will have to keep involving the most valuable creatures, not just have like a few soldier tokens he can throw away to make a 3/3.
You see, Greg doesn't forget the Evolve when the Frostborn Weird comes back from the Banisher Priest too.
Important. But now Vidianto is himself under a fair bit of pressure. He's on sort of a bit close to a 2-turner, basically, depending on how aggressive Greg wants to attack. And he has another Mind Control in his hand, the Domestication, so he can be pretty aggressive.
And not get punished for it at all.
There is, however, only one untapped creature to steal, and that's a Soldier token, the worst of the lot.
Another thing to remember, too, is that you see over there the cards that Hatch has removed with Nightveil Spectre. Among them, we've mentioned many times, is Profit Loss, but that is a card that if he does hit the necessary land to actually be able to cast that, can make this game be a lot shorter than it seems. Let's see what Hatch wants to do here. Is it correct to actually play something pre-combat as opposed to hitting with Spectre first.
It looks like he may be going for a domestication to kind of see what's up.
All right.
Yeah, no protection on Brave the Elements from Vidianto, so Greg's like, all right, now I know what's going on. Looks like he's going to send and try and make this into a 2-turner, I think. No?
I thought maybe he would get him in Cloudfin here.
Yeah, I think I would probably want to put Vidianto to like at least 8 or something.
Island comes to the point, just passes the turn back. Yeah, so if he attacks with Cloudfin too, it puts him down to 5, then you can make it a 2-turn. But he just draws on lands, shows the lands, and does concede the game. So Greg Hatch is going to win this match over Vidianto Wijaya, 2-0, Mono Blue Devotion. Maybe you guys are familiar with it at home. Does defeat White Black Aggro, and Hatch is moving on to 7-1. If he wins the